Strangers 2, or The Strangers Prey at Night, or whatever the fuck it's called, is absolutely atrocious and one of the worst movies I've seen this year so far. It's almost identical to the first Strangers film, even hitting the same story beats. I mean, both films literally start in the same way. In my opinion, it's just the first Strangers film, but outside and somehow worse. I feel like the only way to properly critique this movie is to spoil the shit out of it. So if you're interested in going to go see it, it's dog shit, but go ahead and go watch it and enjoy it, and then come back and watch this review. That's your spoiler warning. 3, 2, 1, go. The acting in this movie is pretty awful, I gotta say. Some of them do an okay job, but they deliver their lines so poorly, and the material that's being performed here is fucking horrendous, so I don't really know who to blame for that. The characters are so horrible and so cliched. Like, I'm supposed to believe that this is a good and loving family, but they don't get along at all, and they just bitch at each other the whole movie. The mom is a generic mom character with a, dark past. The dad is a generic dad character with no other traits or qualities. The brother is a baseball player. The sister literally just whines and cries the whole movie. I think the family has a good moment together like once where they laugh together. These characters are retarded. They are the stupidest fucking characters on the planet. Aside from, I don't know, leaving when you see the dead bodies, you have a perfectly functioning car the entire movie, or leaving the house without their cell phone, I was internally screaming at these characters when they made bad choice after bad choice. And trust me, they never wise up. Any sort of stealth or sneaky scenes are completely ruined by these characters being too fucking loud. They don't shut the hell up when they're supposed to be hiding. They're hyperventilating all over the place and screaming instead of just whispering or talking. There's a big problem in this film with the characters fighting back, but I had a huge problem with the mom and dad character. They never fucking fight back. Like, they're literally being terrorized by 2 petite girls and 1 tall guy. They aren't exactly menacing physically and could be overpowered if you tried. If you really fucking tried. But nope, these characters don't have any sort of survival instinct. When the mother dies, for example, she just stands there and gets stabbed like 3 times, all while staring at her daughter. Like, I get it, you want your child to be safe and all, but you should literally be overflowing with adrenaline right now and fighting back with every ounce of strength that you can possibly muster. But she was just too scared. Another thing that I found incredibly realistic about this seemingly realistic movie was the omniscient gods that these human killers seem to be. They just know where you are at all times, and how incredibly convenient is it that they just knew you'd wander into this trailer and follow a noise so that you could be there and scare them. Like, realistically, you must have been waiting there for hours, right? Isn't something scarier when it's more realistic? I'm sorry, but I can't help but question constantly how these killers know where the characters are at all times. I think it would have been way more tense and scary to have a hunt going on. But that requires effort, and this film is allergic to that, so... It's so weird to me that these killers, they seem kind of invincible, or they take forever to kill, whereas the main characters die in 1 hit. It's kind of like a bullshit video game where you die in 1 hit, but it takes like 50 hits to kill the bad guys. One of them is like a fucking tank. He gets blown up. He's like lit on fire. He's more like Michael Myers than he is a human killer. And just the final act of this film, which we'll get to in a little bit, was so terrible. And the pacing in general is just fucking awful. And they're like annoyingly slow to kill the main characters to the point where it isn't even scary. It's just kind of stupid and unintentionally funny. There's a scene in this film in which a killer gets inside of a car and turns on the radio and like kind of sits and vibes with one of the characters while he's injured, and it's supposed to be like scary and tense, but it was really kind of funny. When the characters finally do start fighting back, it's, unfulfilling and it's kind of boring and lame, but there is a scene in this film in which one of the killers gets blasted in the chest with a shotgun and still survives, and she gets to deliver the line, "Why not?" And I get it, they're trying to capture the same kind of tense and horrifyingly chilling line of the "because you were home" scene from the first film. First of all, she should be fucking dead, let alone muttering words, and the way it's delivered is still unbearably cheesy and awkward. It's just trying to capitalize on the same kind of fear that the first film did, which I don't understand people who are saying that at least this movie is different from the first one, because I found it to be genuinely the same exact movie. Except this film has amateurish editing to the point where it's kind of awful. I'll start with the terrible zooms that ruin the atmosphere and tension. There are a few scenes in this film that could have been really nice and really tense, but they fucking ruined it by reminding you what you're supposed to be scared of. Zooming in on it really awkwardly, and I get that they're trying to go for the 80s slasher movie vibe, but that's just a lazy excuse because this film doesn't take place in the 80s. On top of that, there's shots that stay way too fucking long. Like 4 to 5 seconds could be cut and it would improve the shot by so much. And I know that 4 to 5 seconds seems like a nitpick, but it ruins the atmosphere and the tension that you're going for. Instead of a shot being scary or tense and making me feel a little bit on edge, it kind of makes me laugh with how long they're staying there. This movie is crazy short, like an hour and 20 minutes, but it feels like 4 hours because it's all over the fucking place. The pacing is so off. The first act is like 5 seconds long. We're immediately in the middle act for like 2 hours, and then the ending is super abrupt and shitty. This movie is filled to the brim with cheap as fuck jump scares that you can see coming from a mile away. This movie has those jump scares where the sound and everything goes real quiet for a while. It gives you that anticipation of a jump scare, and then it either does or it doesn't. And that's the only way this film mixes it up. Either it jump scares you or it doesn't. And when this film tries to use atmosphere to scare you legitimately, they fuck that up too by making the scene unintentionally funny. I'll give this movie credit where credit is due. There are 2 scenes that I liked. 2. That probably equates to like 4 minutes of the film. The first one is the opening scene. I thought it was pretty well done. It does a good job of setting up a nice and creepy atmosphere. However, they do fuck it up at the end by making the scene unintentionally funny. The second part is a pool scene in which the brother character finally fights back against the killers. I thought it was well shot and it looked really nice. The aesthetic of the neon lights really fit with this pool and the music was pretty cool. I just wish that it was in a better movie. There's also a pretty funny scene where the dad is trying to get his son to get his shit together, you know, like grabbing his collar and saying like, you gotta get it together, man, we gotta get out of here. But like the entire time he has a gun pointed at his son, and I thought it was genuinely fucking hilarious. And that's it. That's pretty much all I liked. Now I'm going to talk about the really shitty, awful, terrible ending. So it turns out that the brother and sister character are safe, I guess. They get picked up in a pickup truck and they have a final confrontation with Michael Myers. And they end up in a hospital and everything seems to be safe. But then, oh my god, there's a knock at the door, and the sister character drops her drink and the movie ends. And it was really shitty and an awful way to set up the third Strangers film by forcing they're not actually safe, but not really giving a shit about setting it up in a way that feels fulfilling or conclusive in any way. And it's like, it's almost completely unbelievable as well. Like, was the girl that picked them up in the pickup truck in on it? Was she one of the killers? Are there more killers out there? Like, what? The 2 characters are safe for literally 2 minutes before immediately being thrust in a shitty situation again. Why can't these movies ever fucking help themselves? And why can't we just have a solid conclusion anymore? Why do they always have to be setting up for the sequel? It's fucking atrocious. I genuinely hate this movie. It does not have an original bone in its body, and it plays it way too safe and sticks to horror tropes that have been old for years now. The characters are frustratingly stupid and awful, the editing and pacing is dog shit, and the characters are so unbelievably cheesy and lame that it ruins any sort of realism this film boldly fucking stated it had. I'm giving this a 2 out of 10.